Wisdom, wisdom, that's the test. Which rival wisdom team is best? Quote definitions and synergies defined by Claude AI, coordinated by Grandpa Lou Valier. Take care and enjoy.
Team 34. Rise persistently. Quote definitions, biographical context and synergy analysis 2. Replace hate with motivationaleducation.com to guidealife.com. Quote 34.1. Life grants nothing to us mortals without hard work. Horace 65 to 8 BC. Quote definition. The things genuinely worth having in life: achievement, wisdom, character, genuine relationships, meaningful contribution, are not given freely but must be earned through sustained hard work. This is not a complaint, but a description of the structure of human achievement. The connection between effort and outcome is not accidental, but fundamental. Quote application. The mission of making America wiser and kinder is not granted. It must be worked for consistently, over long periods, without guarantee of visible short-term reward. Horace's plain statement removes the comfortable illusion that the right idea or the right approach will produce results without the hard work that all genuine results require. Quintus Horatius Flaccus, Horace, was born in 65 BC in Venusia, a small town in southern Italy, the son of a freed slave who worked as an auctioneer and invested his modest earnings in his son's education with remarkable generosity and foresight. The elder Horace traveled with his son to Rome and paid personally for the best tutors available, then sent him to Athens to study philosophy, a remarkable sacrifice for a man of his means. Horace became one of the greatest Latin lyric poets, producing the odes, satires, and epistles that have been read continuously for over 2,000 years. His observation about life granting nothing without hard work was not abstract, it was autobiographical. His father had worked hard, he had worked hard, and the results of that compounded hard work were the education and the career that made him the friend of Virgil and Maecenas and eventually of Augustus Caesar himself. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Accept the fundamental structure of human achievement, that what is worth having must be worked for, and engage with the hard work accordingly rather than seeking the shortcut that the structure does not actually provide. 2. Honor the work as the mechanism rather than the obstacle. The hard work is not what stands between you and the result, but what actually produces it. 3. Apply Horace's plain realism to the mission. Wisdom education, genuine community building, and the replacement of hatred with kindness are all things worth having that life will not grant without the hard work they require.
Quote 34.2. Our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Confucius 551 to 479 BC. Quote definition. The mark of genuine excellence is not the avoidance of all failure, which is impossible for anyone attempting anything genuinely difficult, but the consistent capacity to rise after every fall. The person who never falls has never reached for something worth falling for. The person who falls and rises demonstrates the character that genuine achievement requires. Quote application. The mission of replacing hate with wisdom will fall repeatedly in the form of failed approaches, resistant communities, discouraging periods, and the inevitable human errors of everyone involved. Confucius's greatest glory principle is the operating standard for all of it, not never falling, but rising every time. The rising is the glory. The falling is simply the proof that something genuinely difficult is being attempted. Kong Chiu, Confucius, appears in teams 7 and 37 as well. Here his most celebrated observation about resilience and glory takes the stage. Born in 551 BC in the state of Lu, in present-day Shandong province, China, Confucius spent much of his adult life attempting to persuade the rulers of various Chinese states to implement his vision of benevolent, ethics-based governance, and failing repeatedly. He was dismissed from positions, spent years wandering from state to state without securing the appointment he sought, and saw most of his political vision go unimplemented during his lifetime. He fell repeatedly in the pursuit of what he believed was genuinely right. He rose each time. His teachings, transmitted through his students and eventually written down as the Analects, became the foundation of Chinese civilization and the curriculum of Chinese education for over 2,000 years. The rising, not the falling, was the glory. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Reframe the standard of excellence from never falling to always rising, the achievable and genuinely meaningful standard rather than the impossible and meaningless one. 2. Treat each fall not as evidence of failure, but as the price of attempting something worth attempting, and treat the rising as the demonstration of the character that genuine achievement builds. 3. Apply Confucius's glory standard to the mission. When the mission falls, and it will, the glory is entirely in the rising, which is always available and always the right response.
Quote 34.3. Real firmness is good for anything. Strut is good for nothing. Alexander Hamilton, 1757 to 1804. Quote definition. Genuine firmness, the quiet, settled, internally grounded strength that holds its position under pressure because the position is genuinely right, is universally effective. Strut, the performance of strength, the theatrical display of confidence that is not backed by the genuine article, is universally useless because it impresses only those who cannot distinguish the performance from the real thing, and it collapses under the first real test. Quote application. The persistence that Team 34 describes must be the genuine firmness Hamilton distinguishes from strut. Performing commitment to making America wiser and kinder while the performance is comfortable is strut. Maintaining genuine commitment through resistance, slow progress, and the sustained difficulty that genuine change requires is real firmness. The mission measures itself by the latter standard. Alexander Hamilton appears in teams 23, 24, 26, and 34. His observations about human psychology, principled standing, and knowledge illuminate multiple frameworks. Here is most direct distinction between genuine strength, and its performance takes the stage. Born around 1757 in the British West Indies and largely self-educated, Hamilton demonstrated throughout his career the precise distinction he articulated, his firmness in the face of opposition, as Washington's aide, as Treasury Secretary, as Federalist Papers co-author, was consistently of the genuinely grounded variety, not the theatrical kind. His willingness to die in a duel rather than recant positions he held on principle was the ultimate, if tragic, illustration of the difference between real firmness and strut. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Distinguish between genuine firmness, internally grounded, quietly held, tested by pressure, and strut, which is the theatrical performance of strength that collapses when the test arrives. 2. Build the genuine firmness that persistent rising requires, conviction grounded in honest inquiry, commitment tested by difficulty, strength that holds precisely because it is real rather than performed. 3. Apply Hamilton's distinction as a self-test for the mission. Is the commitment being expressed genuine firmness that will hold through difficulty, or strut that impresses in comfortable conditions and vanishes when things get hard?
Quote 34.4. Education is the cheap defense of nations. Edmund Burke, 1729 to 1797. Quote definition. Compared to the catastrophic costs of the hatred, division, violence, and political instability that ignorance produces, education is extraordinarily inexpensive. The investment in cultivating wise, informed, morally capable citizens is a fraction of the cost of managing the consequences of failing to do so, making education not a luxury but the most cost-effective defense available. Quote application. This principle is the economic case for the entire motivationaleducation.com mission. A free wisdom education that costs almost nothing compared to what the hatred and ignorance it addresses actually costs communities in violence, division, broken trust, and wasted human potential. Burke's cheap defense formulation makes the investment obvious. Educate wisely and cheaply now, or pay the vastly more expensive costs of the alternative later. Edmund Burke appears in teams 8, 15, and 17 as well, where his observations about universal toleration, lies as the handle of sin, and patience achieving more than force anchored those frameworks. Born in 1729 in Dublin, Burke spent his parliamentary career arguing for the investment in conditions that prevent catastrophe rather than the management of catastrophe after it has arrived. His observation about education as cheap defense came from his analysis of the French Revolution and the conditions that had made it both possible and catastrophic. The combination of an educated elite that had lost confidence in traditional institutions and an uneducated populace with no framework for understanding or managing radical change had produced an explosion that cost France and Europe enormously. Cheap education in advance would have cost a fraction of the revolution it might have prevented. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Apply the cost-effectiveness analysis honestly. What does wisdom education cost, and what does the hatred and ignorance it addresses cost? The comparison is not close. 2. Treat the investment in genuine wisdom education as a defense priority rather than a cultural nicety, the cheap defense that prevents the expensive catastrophe. 3. Use Burke's economic framing to make the mission's case to audiences who respond to cost-benefit analysis. The free workbooks and wisdom quotes are the cheap defense. The alternative is the expensive one.
Quote 34.5, Perseverance, Secret of All Triumphs. Victor Hugo 1802–1885. Quote definition. Behind every triumph, every significant achievement, every successful mission, every lasting positive change, is perseverance. The sustained, patient refusal to stop before it is finished quality that converts capability and good intention into actual accomplished result. Perseverance is not just a contributing factor but the secret behind all triumphs, the one common denominator of everything genuinely achieved. Quote application. Victor Hugo's compression of the secret of all triumphs into a single word is the most economical statement of the mission's most essential quality. The wisdom education, the community building, the persistence through resistance and slow progress. All of it depends on perseverance as the engine that converts genuine commitment into eventual genuine triumph. There is no other secret. Victor Hugo was born in 1802 in Besançon, France, the son of a Napoleonic general, and became the dominant literary figure of 19th-century France. Poet, playwright, novelist, and political exile whose Les Miserables and Notre Dame de Paris are among the most widely read novels ever written. He appears in Team 25 as well, where his observation about compliments as kisses through a veil anchored the expression layer. His single-word distillation of triumph's secret, perseverance, came from a man who had lived it. 19 years of political exile on the Channel Islands, during which he continued writing and eventually returned to France after the fall of the Second Empire to a hero's welcome. He persevered through everything, and the triumphs that resulted, literary, political, and personal, were the direct product of that perseverance. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Recognize perseverance as the secret, not talent, not luck, not resources, but the sustained refusal to stop, that all triumphs share as their common underlying mechanism. 2. Invest in developing perseverance as the primary asset the mission requires, more important than any particular strategy, resource, or favorable circumstance. 3. Apply Hugo's single-word secret to every moment when the mission faces the temptation to stop. Perseverance is the secret of all triumphs, which means stopping is the one guaranteed way to prevent them.
Quote 34.6. My object in life is not simply to make money for myself. Sarah Breedlove, Madam C.J. Walker, 1867 to 1919. Quote definition. The organizing purpose of a life, the object that directs effort, shapes decisions, and determines what counts as success, can be set at a scale larger than personal financial gain. The person who declares that their object is not simply their own enrichment has placed themselves in service of something bigger, and that larger purpose both sustains greater effort and produces more lasting results. Quote application. Sarah Breedlove's declaration is the purpose statement at the heart of the ReplaceHate.org mission. The object is not simply to build a business or accumulate resources. It is to make America wiser and kinder, to serve humanity as she served it, to build something that matters beyond any individual's enrichment. The declaration of that larger object is what converts competent enterprise into genuine mission. Sarah Breedlove, Madam C.J. Walker, appears in Teams 9, 10, 18, 21, and 29 across these 52 teams, each time illuminating a different dimension of her extraordinary life. Here, her most direct statement of purpose takes the final word before the team's closing principles. Born in 1867 to formerly enslaved parents, orphaned at 7, widowed at 20, working as a washerwoman for nearly 2 decades, Breedlove built America's first self-made female millionaire enterprise not to accumulate wealth for herself, but to create economic independence for the thousands of Black women who sold her products. The full version of her declaration: "My object in life is not simply to make money for myself or to spend it on myself. I love to use a part of what I make in trying to help others." She lived the declaration completely, funding anti-lynching legislation, NAACP scholarships, and Black institutions throughout her life, and died leaving the bulk of her estate to charitable causes. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Declare explicitly and live consistently the larger purpose that organizes effort beyond personal enrichment, because the declaration of a larger object is what makes a mission genuinely a mission rather than merely a business. 2. Apply Breedlove's standard to the mission's own object, not simply to build content or accumulate followers, but to genuinely make America wiser and kinder, the larger object that justifies everything the mission does. 3. Draw motivation from the larger object when the smaller rewards are insufficient. Perseverance in service of something genuinely larger than personal gain is sustained by the purpose itself, which never runs out the way external rewards do.
Quote 34.7. I much prefer a compliment, even if insincere, to sincere criticism. Plautus 255 to 185 BC. Quote definition. The honest admission that we prefer flattery to honest feedback, even knowing the flattery is insincere, is both a confession of universal human weakness and a warning about the self-defeating comfort it provides. Plautus is not recommending insincerity but acknowledging the psychological reality that honest criticism, however useful, is genuinely less pleasant than comfortable praise, and that this preference is both universal and worth being aware of. Quote application. In a team about persistent rising, this wry observation serves as the honest acknowledgement of the psychological resistance that genuine feedback meets. The mission, and everyone it serves, will prefer the comfortable compliment to the useful criticism. Naming that preference honestly, as Plautus does, is the first step toward overriding it in favor of the genuine criticism that genuine improvement actually requires. Titus Maxius Plautus was born around 255 BC in Sarzina, Umbria, worked in various trades before finding success as a playwright, and became the most popular Roman comic dramatist. His 20 surviving plays are the oldest complete works of Latin literature. He wrote comedies of mistaken identity, scheming slaves, foolish fathers, and young men in love that were wildly popular in their time and enormously influential on subsequent European comedy. Shakespeare's The Comedy of Errors is directly based on Plautus's Mena Echme. His observation about preferring compliments to criticism is delivered in the comic mode he perfected, the admission of human weakness through the vehicle of honest self-deprecating humor that makes the audience laugh at the recognized truth. He was writing about the universal preference for flattery over honest assessment, and doing so with the self-aware wit that honest assessment of that preference requires. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Acknowledge honestly the universal preference for comfortable compliment over useful criticism. Naming the preference is the first step toward overriding it when the genuine feedback is what is actually needed. 2. Seek out and genuinely receive the sincere criticism that the preference would deflect, because the improvement that persistent rising requires depends on honest feedback, not comfortable flattery. 3. Apply Plautus's self-aware wit to the mission, acknowledge the preference for praise over critical assessment honestly, and then override it by actively seeking the honest evaluation that genuine improvement requires.
Quote 34.8. A good conscience is a continual Christmas. Benjamin Franklin, 1706 to 1790. Quote definition. The person living with a genuinely good conscience, whose actions align with their values, who has done what duty requires, who carries no unresolved guilt for wrongs committed or good omitted, experiences a continuous quality of joy, peace, and celebration that the annual festival of Christmas produces for a day. Good conscience is the renewable version of Christmas, available every day to anyone who earns it through genuine integrity. Quote application. This is the joyful closing principle of Team 34. The persistent rising through hard work, falls, genuine firmness, and service to a larger object ultimately produces the good conscience that Franklin names as a continual Christmas. The mission pursued with genuine integrity, The work done, the word kept, the friend honored, the larger purpose served, yields exactly this: a life that feels like Christmas not once a year but continuously, because the conscience that animates it is genuinely good. Benjamin Franklin appears throughout these 52 teams. His wisdom is range-covering enough to anchor dozens of distinct principles. Here his most warmly optimistic observation closes Team 34. Born in 1706 in Boston and largely self-educated, Franklin spent his life demonstrating that the combination of hard work, genuine integrity, and service to purposes larger than personal enrichment produced exactly the continual Christmas he described. His letters, his autobiography, and the accounts of those who knew him consistently describe a man of warmth, wit, and genuine contentment, not despite the enormous difficulty of what he attempted, but in large part because of the integrity with which he attempted it. The good conscience was genuinely his, continuously earned through exactly the persistent rising that Team 34 describes. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Understand the good conscience not as a passive state but as an active achievement, continuously earned through genuine integrity in work, word, and relationship, and continuously available to anyone willing to earn it. 2. Recognize the continual Christmas as the natural reward of persistent rising with genuine firmness toward a larger object, not a distant prize but the daily quality of life that genuine integrity produces. 3. Apply Franklin's joyful closing principle to the mission. Carry this work with genuine integrity, and the good conscience it earns will be the continual Christmas that makes the hard work not merely obligatory but genuinely celebratory.
How they work together as a unified philosophy to replace hate with motivational education to guidealife.com. The Rise Persistently Framework. Foundation layer. Hard work as structure and rising as glory. Quotes 1, 2. Horace. Establish the fundamental structure of human achievement. Life grants nothing without hard work, removing any illusion that the right approach substitutes for sustained effort. Confucius. Provide the glory standard that makes the hard work worth doing. Greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time, making the fall a non-issue and the rising the entire point. Together, the honest structure and the liberating standard of persistent rising. Horace names the non-negotiable condition. Hard work is what produces what is worth having. Confucius names the right standard for navigating that hard work, not perfect success, but consistent rising after every fall. Together, they describe the fully honest operating reality of persistent effort. It requires genuine work, it involves falls, and the glory is entirely in rising each time. Character layer, real firmness and education as defense, quotes 3, 4. Hamilton. Distinguish the genuine firmness that persistent rising requires from a strut that performs it. Only the genuine article holds under the real pressure that genuine persistence encounters. Burke. Establish education as the cheap defense that prevents the expensive disasters that ignorance produces, making wisdom investment not a cultural luxury, but the most cost-effective available response to the threats it addresses. Together, the character and the investment that persistent rising is built on. Hamilton's genuine firmness is the quality of a rising, not theatrical but real, not performed under comfortable conditions but maintained under genuine pressure. Burke's cheap defense education is the investment that makes the character possible, the wisdom that builds the genuine firmness rather than leaving people with only strut when the difficulty arrives. Purpose layer, perseverance as secret and object larger than self, quotes 5, 6. Hugo compressed the secret of all triumphs into a single word, perseverance, as the one common denominator behind every genuine achievement and the one quality that converts the rest of his framework into actual accomplished results. Breedlove. Provide the larger object that makes perseverance sustainable, the purpose beyond personal enrichment that sustains effort when smaller rewards are insufficient and converts capable enterprise into genuine mission. Together, the engine and the fuel of persistent rising. Hugo names the mechanism, perseverance, without which no triumph arrives regardless of capability or intention. Breedlove provides what makes that perseverance sustainable, the larger object, the mission beyond personal gain, that gives perseverance the purpose that keeps it going when smaller motivations run out. Persevere, and persevere for something larger than yourself. Wisdom layer, honest preference for praise and good conscience as Christmas, quotes 7, 8. Claude. Apply the self-aware honesty that genuine rising requires, acknowledging the universal preference for flattery over honest feedback, so that the acknowledgement enables the override of a preference that persistent improvement cannot afford to indulge. Franklin, close the framework with the joyful destination of persistent rising with genuine integrity, the good conscience that is a continual Christmas, continuously earned and continuously available to anyone who earns it through genuine, honest effort. Together, the honest self-knowledge and the joyful reward of persistent rising. Plautus's wry acknowledgement of the preference for comfortable praise is the honest self-knowledge that prevents self-deception, naming the resistance to genuine feedback so it can be overcome. Franklin's continual Christmas is the reward that genuine integrity produces, not a distant prize, but the daily quality of life available to anyone whose conscience is genuinely good because their rising has been genuinely real.
Free Easy Extra Advantage Math, Spelling and Reading Workbooks you can download for free at stop2think.com or buy at educationstopshate.com. Free Easy Math Wisdom Workbooks with octo repetition to grow math self-confidence. You'll get plenty of repetitive practice of age ranges and averages of our 52 teams of 8 quote authors. Free Easy Alpha Cipher-coded puzzles teach letters, numbers, and phrases using antique wisdoms that encourage and educate. Can you decode this cipher quote of encouragement using either our Learning to Spell or just for fun instructions? And since time is money, practice reading faster with 52 teams of antique rival wisdoms that have passed the test of time to encourage, educate, and entertain generations for centuries. We offer printed versions and timed videos with background music. Sign up for free weekly emails of 52 teams of antique rival wisdom workbooks with easy math, spelling, and reading practice. And, if you'd like to get paid for sharing our wearable wisdoms, keep this in mind. Everyone I know wears a shirt, and most of us change them daily, so change your shirt and change the world. Social equalities are blatantly subliminal antique positive wisdoms repetitively shared without saying a word. This applies to all our wearable shareable wisdoms. Like pretty witty baby onesies and baby tees that you and others will see and read multiple times a day. The same is true with pretty witty kids, but they'll also share these wisdoms with anyone that can read at daycare or school. Youthful truths let your kids gain confidence sharing antique wisdoms with their friends. Imagine them sharing words of wisdom with classmates and teachers. Therefore I think tees I wear is a super easy way to share words of wisdom that have passed the test of time. Our social equalities help make us all wiser and kinder with blatantly subliminal messages promoting a more fair and equal opportunity society for all. And don't forget our giftwisdoms.com for birthdays and holidays that makes it easy to share the wisdom with clothing, coffee mugs, and magnets. So do the future a favor by encouraging, educating, and entertaining with words of wisdom that have passed the test of time to make us all wiser and kinder. With wearable wisdoms to fit babies, kids, and adults. You can clothe a whole family, city, or state. Join the 52 of 8 today.